So our topic for today is gender mainstreaming and processes, plan, commitment, and accountability. So in this module, our intended learning outcomes are: first, define gender mainstreaming and identify its components. Second, explain the advantages and benefits of gender mainstreaming in an organization. And third, present a synthesis of their insights learned in this subject. For our introduction, in order for men and women to be partners in development, they should be advocates of gender and development, or GAD. So what is GAD? Gender and development approach focuses on the socially constructed basis of differences between men and women and emphasize the need of challenges existing in gender roles and relations. And next, mainstreaming is taking into account gender equity concerns, strategies, and processes to integrate gender-responsive goals in the directions, policies, programs, projects, and service of organizations and agencies. So in these modules, this module aims not only to discuss the concept of processes of gender mainstreaming, but to remind us on how to become gender advocates. The gender advocates who is committed to apply the insights learned in the subjects, and not just to learn but to share the significance of gender equity and equality to their family members, peers, schoolmates, organizations, and also the community. So what is gender mainstreaming is all about? Premises on principles of human rights, social justice resulting in equitability, um, distribution of resources. Second, taking into an account of gender equity concerns in all policies, programs, administrative and financial activities, and in organizational procedures, and thereby contributing to a profound organizational transformation. And third, strategies and processes to integrate gender-responsive goals in the directions, policies, projects, and services of organizations and agencies. And last one, a strategy for making women and men's concerns an integral dimension of their design, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of programs and policies in all political, economic, and societal spheres.
Good afternoon, everyone. My report is all about gender mainstreaming. So, first, let's define what is gender mainstreaming. Gender mainstreaming is an approach to policymaking that takes into account both women's and men's interests and concerns. The concept of gender mainstreaming was first introduced at the 1985 Nairobi World Conference on Women. It was established as a strategy in international gender equality policy through the Beijing Platform for Action, adopted at the 1995 Fourth United Nations World Conference on Women in Beijing, and subsequently adopted as a tool to promote gender equality at all levels. In 1998, the Council of Europe defined gender mainstreaming as the reorganization, improvement, development, and evaluation of policy processes so that a gender equality perspective is incorporated in all policies at all levels and at all stages by the actors normally involved in policy making. Gender mainstreaming has a big role in developing gender equality, that it has to be talked in world conferences. Gender mainstreaming is very important because it helps different organizations to implement gender equality. And it also mentioned that mainstreaming helps the policymakers to reorganize, improve, develop, and evaluate the policy processes. The next one is, where do we mainstream gender? On the first slide, we already define the mainstreaming. Now, we need to know where do we implement the gender mainstreaming. And it says here in the household, school, organization or agencies, community, through the entry points, which are policies, people, programs, and projects, enabling mechanisms. On the list that I have mentioned, these are the important groups to understand and know more about the mainstreaming because they are the ones who will help the individuals to understand about the gender equality. And on the side, on the research that I conducted, Thai BL dramas win greater acceptance for LGBT people. Thailand in particular is seeing a blossoming of its own BL culture, especially in TV dramas. Fujimoto says the history of BL series in Thailand dates back to 2013 when the first genuine BL drama was screened. In 2016, a series called Sotus was a huge hit, but BL has only recently become mainstream. Now, a diverse range of BL dramas have been produced, offering a connection between female BL fans and gay people. The drama Dark Blue Kiss raised issues including discrimination and coming out to parents, but also depicted love senses that appealed to a Yao fan base. It was crafted so that the audience would naturally support the lead couple. These dramas that are made legal to their country is just an eye opener that those on the third gender are real and they also have feelings and emotions that needs of understanding. That is why those dramas that mentioned are meant to deliver broad understanding for our fellow people who are on the third gender. And there are significant moves towards official legal recognition of gay couples in the country. In July 2020, a civil partnership law was approved by the Thai cabinet allowing same-sex couples to adopt children and pass on inheritances. If approved by the parliament, it will be a major step toward the realization of same-sex marriage. Thailand is one of the country in Asia to legalize the same-sex couple to adopt children. And this will be a major step to accept same-sex marriage in their country. The next one is how does social media affect gender equality? I made this research out of my curiosity and to know more about the gender equality. These three pictures represent how social media affect the gender equality and thus the actors and actress who play the role has also a big responsibility to deepen the good understanding in changing times in our generations. So it means that this picture represents that we are in a changing times wherein we need to accept those people who have different feelings or in a same-sex gender. So it is very important to know more and deepen our understanding and to accept those people who are in third gender. The next one is the in order to mainstream gender, one needs to take account into account the following. In order to mainstream gender, uh, it needs to create policy, program, and project because it is very important to listen to all people in all types of genders so that the policy will not be biased according to their genders or preferences. So this list below are the things that uh, needs to accept and to do to help those people who are in third gender community, which are who are the stakeholders of policy, program, or project, what kind of consultation need to take place, and with what groups, and what ways have been sought to include the perspective of all groups of male and female stakeholders, and what are the expected impacts, positive and negative, of the policy or programs on each group of stakeholders. The next one is, why do we need to do gender mainstreaming? And number one, it says here, a society well-being depends on ensuring that all its members feel that they have a stake in it and do not feel excluded from the mainstream. And every individual and all people are entitled to participate in, contribute to, and enjoy civil, economic, social, cultural, and political development in which all human rights and fundamental freedoms can be fully realized. And lastly, this requires all groups, but particularly the most vulnerable, to have opportunities to improve or maintain their well-being. And that is why it is very important to do mainstreaming, because it helps a lot of people to raise their voices that no matter what their gender is or are, they will also receive the same respect just like the other people. The next one is gender mainstreaming. Um, Gender mainstreaming is based on international human rights standards like CEDAW, or Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, Beijing Platform for Action, MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, and SDGs, or Sustainable Development Goals, and directed to promote and protect these rights, whether in the social, economic, political, civil, or cultural sphere, or combinations of these. These organizations have the responsibilities in protecting the rights of every individual, regardless of their gender or preferences. And it also says here that it has the ability to identify those most marginalized and excluded in society as a result of gender system. And it can enhance equitable development by empowering people and communities to take their own decisions about what development means to them and how it will be achieved. It is particularly useful to develop planning due to its potential to alleviate injustice, inequality, and poverty, and also equitable access and control of society's resources, including socially valued goods, services, rewards, and opportunities. And lastly, a society's well-being depends on ensuring that all its members feel that they have a stake in it and do not feel excluded from the mainstream. And these organizations help individuals to raise their voices in order to protect them, and that their contribution to the society will be recognized as well. That's all for my report. Thank you.
What are the advantages and benefits of gender mainstreaming? First is, it makes gender difficult to ignore. Once na yung isang tao is naging aware siya sa gender mainstreaming, or once na na-implement na yung gender mainstreaming, may imprint na sa isang tao yung responsibility niya as a human being. Yung malalaman niya na yung mga magiging results once na ma-violate niya yung isang rights na isang tao. So, magiging difficult na sa kanya na ignore yung gender na isang tao. Next is, diffuses responsibility of GAD throughout the organization. Isa sa mga benefits nitong gender mainstreaming is na i-spread niya yung responsibility ng GAD sa isang organization, isang society. Ilan sa mga responsibility ng GAD or Gender in Development is yung women empowerment, equality in gender, sustainable and free from violent society, tsaka yung mga respectful of human rights. 3, it makes GAD an integral part of everything we do and everything we are. So once na na-educate na isang tao about sa GAD, ang mangyayari na is magiging conscious na sa mga ginagawa niya, at magiging aware na siya na kung sa gagawin niya ba to is magiging matatapakan niya ba isang rights na isang tao, or mababiolate niya ba yung rights na isang tao. So dahil doon, nagiging part na ng ginagawa bawat action nila yung GED or Gender and Development. Next is gender mainstreaming as a strategy. Gender mainstreaming strategy is a globally accepted strategy for promoting gender equality. It is not an end to itself, but a strategy, an approach, a means to achieve the goal of a gender equality. It ensures that gender perspective and attention to the goal of gender equality are centered to all activities such as policy development, research, advocacy, dialogue, legislation, resource allocation, planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of programs, projects, and activities. So, yun. Yung gender mainstreaming daw is strategy siya na accepted siya globally. So, ginagawa nila to para, yun nga, ma-spread nga yung responsibility ng GED or Gender and Development sa mga tao, tsaka para makapag-create ng socially just and sustainable society. So, once na mas successful na yung gender mainstreaming, successful na ma-implement sa isang organization, better results mean increased well-being for both men and women and the creation of more socially just and sustainable society. So, yan. Isa rin sa mga objectives dito is yung ma-diminish yung mga gender equality issues like violence against women, social harassment, tsaka yung the gap wage between men and women sa isang corporation or isang company. So, sa Pilipinas, may inintroduce na dalawang tools for gender analysis, which are the Enhanced Gender Mainstreaming Evaluation Framework, tsaka yung the Harmonized Gender and Development Guidelines, or HGDG. First is the Enhanced Gender Mainstreaming Evaluation Framework, GMEF. It is a tool to measure and extend gender mainstreaming efforts of organizations, both national government agencies, NGAs, and local government units, LGUs. It is also meant to assist gender and development focal point system members in measuring gains and successes, as well as point areas for improvement in the way the mainstream GAD perspective in their respective organization. So, in Enhanced Gender Mainstreaming Evaluation Framework, ito yung mga nag-a-assist sa gender mainstreaming activities sa isang organization or sa isang agencies or institution. So, ina-assist nila yung mga members ng development focal point system. Ito yung mga staff na responsible sa mga gender mainstreaming sa isang organization. So, sila yung nag-a-assist doon kung tama ba yung ginagawa nila or may kulang ba or ganun. Next is the Harmonized Gender and Development Guidelines, HGDG. For project development, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation was formulated by National Economic and Development Authority, NEDA, in 2004 in collaboration with the Philippines Commission on Women, PCW, formerly the National Commission on the Role of Filipino Women, or NCRFW, and the Official Development Assistance, Gender Development, ODA, and GOT. Network with funding support from the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, and the Asian Development Bank.
My topic is all about the interlinked concepts of gender, gender analysis, gender mainstreaming, and gender-sensitive indicators. So what is gender all about? We will define these four: the gender analysis, the gender mainstreaming, and gender-sensitive indicators. So first, what is gender? Gender is refers to the social roles and relations between women and men. So in gender, refers siya sa characteristics of women and men. Example nito yung mga norms, behaviors, and roles that associated with being a woman or man. Next is the gender analysis. Gender analysis helps us to frame questions about women and men's roles and relations in order to avoid making assumptions about who does what, when, and why. So, yung gender analysis method siya na ginagamit para maintindihan natin yung relationship between men and women. Merong iba't ibang tools for doing gender analysis. Ito yung mga common, the Harvard Analytical Framework and the Moser Gender Analysis Framework. Next is the gender mainstreaming. Gender mainstreaming involves that attention to gender equality is a central part of all agricultural and rural development interventions, including analysis, policy advice, advocacy, legislation, research and the planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of programs and projects. So, yung gender mainstreaming, aim niya na ma-solve yung gender inequalities. Kaya naman, tool siya para ma-achieve yung gender equality.
So, let's now talk about processes of gender mainstreaming. So, first is yung conscientization. It is an interactive participatory process that seeks to enable beneficiary groups to examine their own realities and enables them to plan their future. So, we can associate the word acceptance in here. Acceptance sa sarili at the same time acceptance ng society regarding the gender, regarding LGBTQ plus community. So, according to Paulo Freire, the way in which individuals and communities develop a critical understanding of their social reality through reflection and action. Siyempre, kung may acceptance yung mga part ng LGBTQ community, yung any individual may acceptance sa sarili nila, mas mako-convey nila, magiging confident sila. In that way, mako-convey nila na they are truly existing. Na nag-exist yung mga katulad nila, na hindi sila salot na katulad lang din sila ng normal na tao. Next is advocacy. It is influencing opinion in strategic areas where issues and concerns are decided upon. Siyempre, dito naman, yes, nagbibigay tayo ng opinion, pero minsan yung opinion, wala sa hulog, kumbaga. Sa advocacy, tinutukoy nito yung opinion mo na may mabago. Like yung sa issue, di ba? Issue about gender discrimination sa Manila. So, through advocacy, unti-unti nalulunasan yung mga issues na yun. So, there are different forms of advocacy campaign. So, yung first is yung legislative advocacy, wherein yung naisip kong best representation sa legislative advocacy is si Geraldine Roman, which is first representative of Bataan 1st District since 2016. And siya yung kauna-unahang transgender na nakapasok sa Congress. Which is, pinatunayan niya lang na kaya niya din eh. Kaya nung mga katulad niya, yung gender, na makapasok sa Congress. Siyempre yung mga politicians na under ng legislative branch ng government is magre-rely lang sila syempre sa research, sa data. So siya, pwede niyang ipaliwanag yung part nila as part of the LGBT community. So next is yung media advocacy. Under media advocacy, yung picture na nilagay ko is yung kay Mayor Isko Moreno, where nagpatupad siya ng anti-discrimination sa Manila. Anti-gender discrimination. So, when we say media advocacy kasi, includes dun yung print, radio, and televisions. So, yung nangyaring yan, yung nasa picture, it was being televised, na nabalita siya, and I'm sure na publish din siya sa mga newspaper. Another form is community advocacy. So, yung naisip ko naman na best example sa community advocacy is yung Pride March, wherein lahat ng tao doon may advocacy, which is yung matanggap ng society, yung third sex, matanggap ng society yung LGBTQ community na hindi sila dapat maging iba, hindi dapat sila dinidiscriminate. And yung mga taong sumasama dun is not only the part of the LGBTQ community, but also those persons who have those individuals, those peoples na may advocacy na gusto iparating na they are also normal, na tao din sila. Is capability building. It enables the individual, gender and development advocate to develop specializations that will help him her to facilitate the attainment of gender equity. Ito sa continuous learning, hindi naman natatapos doon yung kung may alam na sila about gender and development, yung may advocacy na sila, yun na yun. Siyempre, continuous learning, matututo at matututo din sila along the way.
So, continuation processes of gender mainstreaming. So, number 4, capacity building. It enabled the organization to address gender issues and concern in all aspects of its work. So, dito, pinapayagan nito ang samahan na tugunan ang mga issue sa gender at alalahanin sa lahat ng aspeto ng gawain nito. So, types of capacity building includes the vertical approach and horizontal approach. Sa vertical approach, mula sa students, faculty, staff members, program head, dean, and university key officials. And sa horizontal approach naman, dito naman ay magmumula sa student to students, faculty to faculty, key official to key officials. It may include system review and analysis, policy analysis, sharing of experiences, field exposure, review of BMGO, which is Vision, Mission, Goals, and Objective, Procedural Manual, Staff or Office Competency. So, number 5, operationalization. This is the explicit integration of God, which is gender and development, concerns in all aspects of the organization and in the different phases in the project cycle. So dito, tinitiyak na ang kasarian ay kasama bilang isang mahalagang bahagi ng lahat ng mga patakaran at programa sa samahan. Mayroong pangkat na multi-sectoral, sagad, pagbuo ng alyansa at trainees pool. Number 6, institutionalization. It includes different mechanisms like allocation of adequate budget and sufficient logistic to implement GAD-related programs, projects, and activities. So dito ay maaaring magamit ng mga member states kapag bumubuo ng partnerships agreements or PAS at ng pamamahala ng mga otoridad sa antas national at subnational level. Kapag binubuo ang mga operational program, which is OOPS, upang itaguyod ang pagkakapantay-pantay sa pagitan ng mga kababaihan at kalalakihan sa lahat ng kanilang pagkakaiba-iba sa buong EU. So, the European Commission, kinikilala ang mga pagkakaiba sa pagitan ng kababaihan at kalalakihan sa mga tuntunin ng kanilang posisyon. So, sa lipunan. At ang pamamahagi ng mga mapagkukunan, oportunidad, paghihigpit at kapangyarihan sa isang particular na konteksto. Sa ganitong paraan, ang pagsasagawa daw ng pagsusuri sa kasarian ay nagbibigay daan para sa pagbuo ng mga intervention na tumutugon sa mga hindi pagkapantay-pantay na kasarian at matugunan ang iba't ibang mga pangangailangan ng mga kababaihan at kalalakihan. So that is my report. Thank you.
The next topic is about crafting of a gender affirmative action. Significant part of crafting a gender affirmative action is to review the context of gender milestone which composed of the following. So number 1, we have gender blind. It is lack of recognition of gender as an essential determinant of life, choices that are available in society. So my example is Joshua is a boy. He usually have conversation with his girl best friend Nicole. Well, as you can see, Joshua doesn't view Nicole's gender as a hindrance for him to have a conversation. Another example is may police women at policeman. Sa gender blind, walang discrimination na nagaganap kasi equal ang pagtingin sa kanila. So next, we have gender aware. It is the recognition of gender inequality that there are differences between men and women in terms of access to and control over resources, including opportunities for development. When one is gender aware, then she recognizes the reality of gender gap. One can also see and appreciate the differences of the needs and interests of women and men. Being gender aware comes with the recognition that there is inequality. In gender aware, knowing and understanding the differences between male and female. Ito yung state na alam ng isang tao na may inequality talaga sa gender. For example, physical strength. Carlo helps her wife in moving their furniture. He lift a heavy TV because he knew her wife can't lift it or carry it. In that example, Carlo is gender aware because he knew the physical capacity of her wife. That's why he didn't let her carry the TV. Mas malakas kasi ang lalaki in terms of physical compare sa ating mga babae. So next, we have gender sensitive. It is recognition of the underlying and hidden cause of gender inequity. Differences are felt undesirable and unjustifiable. Problems resulting from inequity and discrimination are identified. In gender sensitivity, ito yung pagkakaroon ng kaalaman tungkol sa inequality tungkol sa gender, na kung saan ang norms ng lipunan, ang lalaki dapat ang nagtatrabaho at ang mga babae dapat lang yung mag-aalaga sa mga anak. Ang gender sensitivity ay binabaliwala ang ganitong norms. For example, Richard is asking his friend Joshua why does he always at home taking care of the kids and letting her wife do the work. Joshua replied that women can also do what men can, vice versa, like providing money to the family, and for me, as a man, taking care of the children because every man wants to care for their child. So next, we have gender responsive. It is the presence of program, projects, and process that systematically incorporate or address gender concerns and issues. So sa gender responsive naman po, dito mo inaalam yung roles ng babae at lalaki at yung mga inequalities ng both genders para pag nagbigay ka ng trabaho. Like for example, magkakaroon ng equal participation at fair distribution ng benefits. Hindi biased kasi naging responsive ka towards both genders. Next, we have gender fair equity. Society where women and men equitably share in the responsibilities, power, authority, and decision-making and enjoy the benefits. Ito yung fair of treatment for men and women according to their needs. Treatment is different but considered equivalent for both parties. Next, we have gender accountable. Gender equity is viewed as the key commitment of the organization. It assumes responsibility to make gender an integral part of what the organization is and what it does. Ito po ay ipinapatupad at mandated ito sa isang local agency na magkaroon ng gender development activity. Halimbawa, sa isang organization, nagkaroon ng activity about gender development, mga seminars, then other activity na makakatulong sa pag-develop ng gender ng bawat isa. So, the reason why they implemented that activity is for internal mass at magkaroon ng respect and awareness each other because people inside much aware and feel empowered. Okay, next reporter na po.
With gender mainstreaming, we also have to craft the strategy and development our plans. But familiarity, ability, and developing plans are not enough. We have to do the work. That's why the Philippine Commission on Women, National Economic Development Authority, and the Department of Budget and Management joined Circular Number 2012-01 mandate the guidelines for the preparation of annual gender and development plans and budget and accomplishment report to implement the Magna Carta of Women. So yung gender mainstreaming nga is even na meron siya na craft nga yung na-discuss before, yung crafting of a gender affirmative action, no? Even na meron siyang craft strategy to develop yung mga plano, but it is not enough to implementing equality of a gender, no? Then that's a reason why kung bakit yung Philippine Commission on Women, then yung National Economic Development Authority or NEDA, and the DBM or the Department of Budget and Management is nagkasundo sila, or they reconciled, or they agree to have annual gender development. Then yung gender development na to is yun nga yung Joint Circular Number 2012-01. Then ang nag-aim ito na ng annually gender and development. Then yung budget and accomplishment report nito is nakapaloob dun sa Magna Carta of Women. Also yung Joint Circular Number 2012-01 na to is ito din yung tinatawag na Magna Carta of Women. And also before anything else is ano nga ba talaga yung MCW or the Magna Carta of Women? Sabi dito, the Magna Carta of Women, the main purpose is to prescribe guidelines and procedure for the formulation, development, submission, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation, including the accounting of the results of agency annual gender and development budgets, include the accomplishment report, and to provide the mechanism for the development of programs, projects, and activities to respect, protect, and to fulfill the rights of women at the socio-economical, cultural, and economical political spheres. So itong Magna Carta of Women is ito yung tinatawag din doon, yung gender and development is ito din yun, yung Magna Carta of Women. Kumbaga yung Magna Carta of Women is nasa kanya, or yung main purpose niya is magbigay ng mga guidelines, procedure, no, na to develop for the development, submission, and implementation ng gender and annually gender and development. And then yung mga accomplishment report, then yung mga budget is nadito din sa Magna Carta of Women na gagamitin for the annually gender development. And then also para pala yung Magna Carta of Women din is to fulfill din yung and is to fulfill or to implement protection the rights of Filipina women in the socio-economical, cultural natin, and then sa political sphere. Then next is pursuant to the Magna Carta of Women, MCW and the General Appropriation Act GAA, all government departments, including their attached agencies, offices, bureaus, state universities, and colleges, government-owned and controlled corporation, local government unit, and other government instruments shall be formulate their annual GPB or yung Gender and Development Plans and Budget within the context of their mandate to mainstreaming gender perspective in their policies, program, and projects. So yung according to the Magna Carta of Women nga and General Appropriation Act or GAA, yung lahat ng government agencies na to, din yung mga offices, bureaus, state universities, etc. is nagsama-sama sila to formulate GPB or yung Gender and Development Plans and Budget annually. Then yung nag-aim ng na to fulfill the policies, programs, and project ng gender mainstreaming, or then nag-aim din ng mga policies and programs ng gender and development. Then sabi din dito, at least 5% of the total agency's budget appropriation authorized under the annual GAA shall be correspond to activities supporting gender and development plans and programs. The gender and development budget shall be drawn from the agency's maintenance and other operation expenses, capital outlay, and personal services. It is understood that gender and development budget does not constitute an additional budget over the agency total budget appropriation. So, sabi, at least 5% daw ng budget na kinikita ng mga agencies na ito is napupunta napupunta for annual gender and development plans and budget program, and understood din ng mga agencies na to na yung nilalabas nilang budget is hindi nila nilabas para tumubo. Nilabas nitong budget na to is understood nila for gender and development yearly, no? Then next is Magna Carta of Women or RA 9710 or Magna Carta of Women. The Magna Carta of Women is comprehensive women's human rights law that seek to eliminate discrimination against the women by recognizing, protecting, fulfilling, and promoting the rights of Filipino women, especially those marginalized sector. Kumbaga, sabi dito sa Republic Act 9710, no? Or Magna Carta of Women. Yung Magna Carta of Women is isa siyang comprehensive human rights nga, sabi, na nag-aim na to eliminate discrimination sa mga Pilipina or women, no? By to kumbaga maipakilala yung women and maprotektahan yung women sa especially sa mga marginalized sectors daw, or to nag-aim ng to promoting yung rights of Filipino women, especially sa mga marginalized sectors daw, or yung mga tinatawag na social exclusion. So, social exclusion kasi guys is sabi dito, social exclusion is the process in which individual are blocked from or deny full access to various rights, opportunities, and resources that are normally available to member of different groups. So, kumbaga, yung tinatawag natin na marginalized sector o social exclusion is ito yung may isang individual sa isang organization or group na hindi siya nabibigyan ng enough, siya yung nabubukod tangin na hindi nabibigyan ng enough or nagkakaroon ng biases dahil siya yung kumbaga hindi siya nabibigyan ng enough na resources or access or rights or opportunities sa isang group. Yun yung tinatawag natin na social exclusion. And yun lang, that's all for my report, and thank you.
So next topic is essential elements in GAD planning and budgeting. First is creation and or strengthening of GAD focal point system. As required by Magna Carta of Women and following the Philippine Commission on Women Memorandum Circular 2011-01 or the guidelines for creation, strengthening, and institutionalization of gender and development focal point system. Sabi, all agencies should have an institutionalization and functional GAD focal point system. So what is GAD focal point system? It is a interacting and interdependent group of people in all government. They were tasked to catalyze and accelerate gender mainstreaming. So dito rin pumapasok yung promotion of gender equality and women's empowerment. GAD focal point system shall compose of agency head and executive committee and then the technical working group. Next is capability building on gender and development. Clear understanding and appreciation of gender and development is a prerequisite for successful GAD planning and budgeting. So agencies are required to regularly undertake orientations and capacity development on GAD, including GAD-related laws and commitments for their employees. So, yung agencies, dapat nag-undertake sila ng trainings and orientations. They also must have knowledge on GAD-related laws. So, bakit sila mag-undertake ng training is for them to know and understand the gender mainstreaming, the gender analysis, which compare the relative advantage and disadvantages faced by women and men in their lives. And also, yung gender responsive planning and budgeting. Next is conduct of gender audit. Gender audit is an examination of agency level of gender mainstreaming or extent of gender responsiveness of its policies, programs, and projects, the level of gender awareness and competence of its personnel, and the presence or absence of enabling mechanism that support gender mainstreaming. So, yung purpose ng gender audit is to determine whether the organization's practices and other related support system or programs and activities nila that support gender mainstreaming is nag-work or effective siya. This tool or process assists organizations in establishing baseline. Yung gender audit is nag-identify din siya ng gaps and yung challenges, and then they create and recommending ways on how to address them. So yung result ng gender audit is nagiging basis din siya sa pag-develop ng new programs na i-implement and pag-enhance ng gender responsiveness of agency policy. Then lastly, institutionalizing GAD database or disaggregated data. Agency shall develop or integrate in its existing database GAD information to include gender statistics and sex disaggregated data that have been systematically produced or gathered as inputs or basis for planning, budgeting, programming, and policy formulation. So, yung agencies, hindi lang nila kailangan ng GAD focal point system, but they also need GAD database, which include nga yung nabanggit na gender statistics or yung needed to measure and monitor the realities of lives of women and men, or reflect their changing roles in their society, economy, and even in their families. So, in gender statistics also help policymakers to formulate new policies and plans and monitor changes. So, yung information na nag-gathered from gender statistics and sex-segregated data is nagiging basis din nila for planning, budgeting, pag-develop ng program, and for policy formulation. Yun lang po. Thank you.
My report is all about commitment to action. What is commitment? And lahat naman tayo is may commitment sa family, sa friends, sa relationship. Yung promise na yon is need nating tuparin kasi 'di ba nagtiwala sila sa iyo, natutuparin mo yon. So, obligation mong gawin yun para sa kanila. Simple lang, kung may commitment kayo sa parents mo na makakatapos ka ng pag-aaral, responsibility mo na ayusin yung action na gagawin mo and kailangan hindi maka-affect yung ibang bagay o yung nakapaligid sa'yo. Kasi nag-promise ka sa parents mo na gagawin mo lahat makapagtapos ka lang. So, you admit every consequences of your action. Once na nangako ka, tuparin mo. Number 1, commitment is not just a vision, it is giving of your time, talent, and energy. Dito is kumbaga, yung vision mo or yung dreams mo that you want to achieve, yung, yung mga gusto mong matupad, kaya nagsiset ka ng commitment sa sarili mo kasi may wants ka na gusto mong ma-achieve sa buhay. Number 2, commitment is not just a promise. It is a strong conviction. It can survive the test of time and difficulties. Siyempre, hindi lang sa promise naka-base, kundi dapat makasurvive ka sa struggle mo sa buhay. Kahit maraming problemang dumating, fight ka lang sa buhay kasi, di ba yung commitment, kailangan matupad mo yon sa sarili mo. Even nag-fail ka dun sa commitment na binitawan mo, there's a way o makakaisip ka ng solution kasi nga nilalabanan mo yung everyday difficulties na naranasan mo. Number 3, commitment is not just a words, it is action. Siyempre, hindi lang puro salita, dapat may action ka din ginagawa. Kaya nga nagbitaw ka ng salita sa friends mo, sa family, and sa relationship mo, panindigan mo yung bawat lumalabas sa bibig mo. Hindi yung magaling ka lang sa communication, wala ka namang determination. Every kind of commitment are important, lalo na nag-keep ka ng promise na yon. Number 4, commitment is not just feeling, it is doing. Hindi lang sa nararamdaman mo, syempre ito yung pinapakita mo. Parang sa relationship, kahit ng boyfriend or girlfriend, even though ang tagal-tagal nyo na pero naghiwalay pa rin kayo, parang di nyo na-survive yung challenges, ganun. Expressing commitment to a cause enables us to give spirit to our lives and this keep us deeply involved in the betterment of ourselves, other people, our communities, and our society, and it may represent a symbol or intended contributions to gender and development program. This will be part of your journey wherein it includes the transformations of ourselves and our relationship. How we will live as a gender advocates will also be seen in our dealings with our significance and relevance in the households, schoolmates, and school personnel members of our organization or in our organization. May this commitment will always be you and bring equality and peace not only to your home but to your school, organizations, and community. Siyempre sa commitment, yung is dedication to a particular organizations, yung mga cause ng belief and willingness to get involved. Yung mga people na nag-committed sa organizations and effort, parang sinasabi nila, they show up the following to or yung greater responsibility para sa kanila. Siyempre yung commitment hindi lang sa side mo naka-focus, kundi sa organization din. Lahat naman sila may commitment or yung iba't ibang tao, iba't ibang different kinds of mga jobs na meron sila. May mga commitment din sila sa buhay. Parang sinasabi lang sa statement or yung sa paragraph na need ng bawat isa ng commitment para mas maayos yung pathway ng buhay ng bawat isa. Yung duties and responsibilities natin sa kanya-kanya nating buhay ay maging maayos. Kasi kapag nag-set ka ng commitment sa mindset mo, sa utak mo, ganun, o kaya sa family mo, sa friends, parang kailangan mong gampanan kahit sa organization. Yun lang po. Thank you.